Well, hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of the Marketing Guides for Small Business podcast. My name is Ian, and I'm joined by Ken and Paul, and together we are your marketing guides. Now, a 2020 survey of small businesses found that 90% of respondents in the survey say that their industry is now more competitive in 2020 when this was done than in 2019. This is huge, 90%. So, what can a business do to flourish in such a competitive environment that's changing so rapidly? Well, that's why we're exploring this important topic that is often overlooked by small businesses. But if it's utilized properly, it can be a huge help to your business. The topic I'm speaking of is small business competitive intelligence. So today we're going to explore what competitive intelligence is, why every small business should at least consider using it, and some common misconceptions and how to leverage it without doing the hard work yourself. So let's dig into this very cool topic. Paul, I'm going to start with you. Let's start by asking, what is competitive intelligence?
Well, simply put, it's information about your competitors, and it's a process that So what does that mean? How do you go about that? And basically, it's monitoring what your competitors are doing in the marketplace, so you can make informed decisions about your marketing strategy. So you have to gather and analyze information about what they're doing, because maybe what they're doing works and maybe what they're doing doesn't work. But by understanding what they're doing, you can make strategic decisions. And if they're doing something that that really works, you probably don't want to like mimic it verbatim, but you can definitely get some really good ideas, because they're probably doing the same thing to you. They're watching what you're doing as well, and kind of copycatting. If you're doing something that works, I know probably every small business has seen that. They come up with a really good idea and they put it out there in the marketplace, and next thing they know, their competitors are doing the same thing. And that's basically what competitive intelligence is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've heard the saying before, especially in the corporate world, where it would often be said, like, be the first to market with something. But if you can't be the first, then up the game to the next level, right? Be the best. So, Ken, how can small businesses benefit from this competitive intelligence that we're talking about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm going to say I don't know that your competitors are paying attention to what you're doing. And I think one of the reasons why a lot of businesses don't really, they freak out about the whole world of online stuff. Even to this day, it's like, I don't want to put that on my website because then everybody's going to know what I do and how I do it. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. That's why people make buying decisions, right? So that information's out there. I mean, you can go see what your competitors' websites are developed with. You can see. I mean, we've got platforms that we use that show us every ad that a competitor is running for, like Google Ads, in particular markets for certain keyword phrases. Um, you can see where they're sending people to. You can see the calls to action. You can see the offers that they're doing. If that's not valuable information, I don't know what is. So, I like to think of, we're private investigators in part, on the digital marketplace, for our clients. And our jobs is to go out there and yeah, we take snapshots. We say, hey, these guys, here's how they're ranking this week. We've got a great tool that we use. Ian, I know you use it too, that allows us to do a grid, where for a keyword phrase, a business is ranking on that grid point, plotted on a map. And you can also tell who the competitors are and who's outranking them or who they're outranking. You can see progress over time, not only for yourself, but also for competitors. So I think really the bottom line is, I think the biggest thing is, you can find out how thorough and comprehensive your competition is when it comes to developing an effective online marketing strategy. And then from there, you've got a lot of decisions that you can make. Do you need to spend more money than you probably expected to because somebody else is making those investments? Possibly. You know, yeah, there's just so many different things. I mean, you can establish benchmarks. It's actually quite fun.
Yeah, yeah. You know, the thing I was thinking about in relation to this as you were talking is I was watching a video recently, and it was talking about I think it's a Dutch runner, a female Dutch runner who's just broken a big record this week. But when I think about sports and competitive intelligence and how, you know, how there's constantly a raising of a bar, but
Yeah,
the progression never stops, right? You can never take your foot off the gas pedal, because you constantly, if you want to win at the game of sport, you have to see what is working for other people. You obviously have to take into account your strengths and your weaknesses, right?
yeah,
Because they might be different than your competition. But if you learn from what's working for them and propelling them to the top, you can also implement that in your own way, not necessarily in the exact same way, and it can help you beat them, right? Like it's a
right.
pretty common concept, but I think
Yeah.
it's so often overlooked, right? It's just nobody has time to do it, and it's off people's radar.
Yeah, I mean, to follow up on that analogy, competitive intelligence is like watching game film.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, learning. I mean, if you watch the Super Bowl last week, right? You saw how they were able to adapt and try different things, and you know, they obviously, Kansas City came out after the half, and they were a different team because they obviously adjusted their strategy to their competitors, right? So,
Yeah.
in a kind of a microcosm of business, you can see how that works on the playing field, but it works for your business as well.
Yeah.
Paul, what kind of information can small businesses gather through competitive intelligence?
Well, these days with the right tools, pretty much everything, their products and services that they offer, their pricing structure, any promotions that they're running, there's the social media channels that they're on and what kind of engagement they have. You can find out their distribution channels, their uh, customer service and support, how they do that. Sign up for one of their promotions and see what kind of response you get. Is it immediate? Is it? I mean, a lot of things are automated these days. So that we've talked about in the past. That's a good thing to do, but if they're not doing that, that might be an opportunity for you to compete with them, and like you said, kind of up your game a little bit. But yeah, you could pretty much find out everything your competitors are doing. It takes time. You may not want to do it yourself. You may want to hire a marketing agency to do it for you, because some of these things do take tools, like Ken alluded to, and some of those tools and platforms are not cheap, but an agency has scale. So
Mhm.
they're using the same tool for multiple clients, so they can probably do it more cost effectively than you can.
Yeah, I mean, but not everything costs money, right? I mean, you can do view source and you can tell, if you know what you're looking at when you look at source code, that's free. It's available on every browser. You can tell what the website was built with,
Yep.
even including some of the plugins and maybe even the theme that they used. You can go to the about page of any Facebook business, click on the transparency, and if they're running ads, you can go see what ads they're currently running. You can't see necessarily their targeting criteria, but you can see the ad itself, the copy, the headline, the media that they're putting in, the calls to action. So yeah, I mean, there's so, you just have to know that all this stuff is available. It is. I mean, that's the amazing thing. And I know I'll hold off, because I know you're going to ask me some more questions kind of
Sure.
related to this.
Yeah, actually, just this morning I was watching an update video from one of the SEO tools that we use when we're optimizing websites for clients and for ourselves, and it was really interesting because it was actually on the topic of, in your marketplace, if you see one, it was, hey, Paul, it was about schema, man. It was about schema markup. But what was so cool about it was the tool has, I don't know if, I think it's a new function because I certainly didn't know about it, but it actually allows you to put in a competitor's URL and it will actually pull out the schema from the page and give you like a template that you can then adjust to fit your business, because you can't use their information, you have to use your own. But I thought that was brilliant, because the case study they were sharing was, if you're in a market and say you're a dentist and another dentist is outranking you, and their search result is showing a review snippet, or it's showing an accordion snippet with FAQs. Those are really powerful and it sets them apart from everyone else. So why not glean how they're doing that and leverage that against them and do it better, right? So I thought that was very, very cool. Something I learned today. So competitive intelligence.
Yeah. Awesome.
And Ken, what are some common misconceptions about competitor intelligence?
Well, I think a lot of businesses, especially, the people who've started the business, they tend to be doers. They're entrepreneurs. They're just going to go do stuff. They rely on their gut. So they may not feel like it's worth the time or effort to go in and do this analysis to see what your competitors are doing. In some cases, some people may frankly just not even care. And which, hey, if you're in a position and you're getting the business that you want, I mean, it's your business. You can make those decisions, right? So I think a lot of businesses think that they're not big enough, or that their competitors aren't big enough to really get any useful, actionable data. I think a lot of people think that, here's the biggest misconception I think a lot of people have, is that they tend to think that marketing is a static thing. It's a one and done kind of a thing. And no, it's a living, breathing, evolving kind of a thing. And if you're not taking that posture and respecting marketing as that living, breathing organism that needs to adapt and change, you're going to miss opportunity. And we've talked about this before in the past. Many businesses we talk to, they're like, man, my competitor's getting business that I know I should be getting.
Yep.
Well, how do we fix that? We start with competitive intelligence. The other thing is, this is not competitor intelligence, but it's looking at, the performance of your website. You need to make sure that you're not giving people who are landing on your website a reason to go to your competitors either. And so you want to make sure you plug those gaps. So, it's not competitor analysis, but I know a lot of people get really frustrated because they think their competitors are getting business that they should be getting. Well, one of the things you need to do is you need to make sure that you've plugged your gaps, in addition to what is the competitor doing to get that business that you think could have been and should have been yours.
Yeah. Some people even think competitive intelligence gathering is unethical, right? They just have this feeling like, it's a little bit dirty, because it's not an obvious thing to do, and it's a little bit in the background, but there's nothing shady about it at all. In fact, all the information is readily available. You just have to have the tools and the expertise in order to draw it out.
Yeah. One point in time back a long time ago, when I first started my company, we did IT security related work. And, there's this concept called ethical hacking, where you're paid and you're authorized to try to break into somebody's, online resources, tools, databases, networks, whatever, applications. And so, yeah, that's very stringent. And there are laws that, if you do that and you don't go through the proper channels and get the proper permissions, you can go to jail for stuff like that. This isn't that. This is publicly available information that's out there. You just have to have the right know-how and tool set to go find it. So there's nothing unethical about it. And it's certainly not unfair. As a matter of fact, it could be one of your best competitive advantages.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, one of the things you said too jumped out at me that, and we've said this many, many times on this podcast in different episodes, but your business does not live in a vacuum. It's not in a bubble. And yes, you have to focus on your game, so to speak, your strengths and weaknesses. But if you ignore, especially in the digital world, if you ignore what's happening competitively, you're going to get crushed. Like that's just the truth of the matter, especially post COVID, when a lot of businesses they woke up, they started investing in new websites, SEO, pay per click. Like they realized, wow, we can't keep doing business the way we were doing it because the world has changed,
Yeah.
especially in that time period. But even after, you know, we've noticed dramatic competitive pressures now on a lot of different businesses we support. And luckily, we've, if you're doing the right things and consistently doing them, you're going to win the game, right? No matter who comes at you. But yeah, I think you can't think you're living in a bubble because, quite frankly, what you said, right? When people are searching for your business online, if your competitor's coming up before you, or if you're not showing up to, page 2, which means you don't exist on Google search results, you're at a severe disadvantage. And if you believe your business, and I really think every business should believe that they offer the very best service or product to the consumer, or if it's B2B, to the business. And if they don't, they should fix that, right? They should be offering what they believe to be the very best. But if you believe you're offering the very best option, then you owe it to yourself. And even more importantly, you owe it to the business or the consumer to make sure you're the best. You give your business the best opportunity to be in front of them because you are the best option.
Yeah. And just to kind of follow up on that, just because you're doing the right things, and you're making an investment in an omni-channel marketing strategy, and you're doing that, month over month over month over month, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily enough, because competitors come along and they're hungry and they want a slice of that pie, right? And they may need to take part of that pie from you. And so just because you've been doing this stuff, if you're not paying attention to what your competitors are doing and how somebody may be creeping up and maybe even overtaking you in search rankings or getting more online reviews than you've gotten, you can't just be complacent, even if you're doing all of the right things. It's necessary, but it's not sufficient to dominate a market.
Yeah. Awesome point. Hey, Paul, how can a small business gather competitive intelligence? Like, what actions can they take in order to glean this information?
Well, you monitor their website, start there, look at their website and look at the content they're putting out there, look at their social media profiles. And if they're getting a lot of engagement on social media, what are they posting there? What are they doing? There's ways to monitor and look at their advertising campaigns, or whether it's Facebook, Google ads, whatever it is, YouTube ads, go to their YouTube channel if they have one, see what they're doing there. You can do surveys and go to trade shows. Like I said earlier, but if they're doing a promotion, sign up for their promotion and see what that process is like. Maybe they're doing something you're not, or doing something better than you, or maybe you're not even running promotions. We actually have clients that don't want to run promotions because they don't want to, for whatever reason. And I think that's a bad idea, especially if your competitor is doing it. But yeah, just, go to trade shows. Have someone from your company go up and talk to a competitor if they know who you are. They may not know everybody that works at your company. Have someone go up and talk to them and get information from trade shows. Those are just some really simple things that people can do. Now, getting into really looking at what they're doing from a Google Ads perspective, that if you really want to deep dive into that takes some paid tools to really do that. But there's a lot of things you can do that don't really cost any money, take a little bit of time, but it's not like it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to do it. If they have a newsletter, sign up for their newsletter.
Absolutely.
See what they're putting out there.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing too, part of the world that we have to deal with now in terms of overall marketing strategy is employee recruitment. And,
Yeah.
so I think, doing mystery shopping, or mystery application, like you go through the application process with a competitor to see what are they offering? What benefits do they have? What's their onboarding process? How do they make you feel as you're going through the process? Is that the kind of company you'd want to work for? Doing stuff like that, in addition to like what Paul said, if they've got downloads or offers, sign up for those and see how those things work. You can learn a lot like that. Now, to me, that's where I start to feel a little bit dirty because you're kind of misleading people when you go through those. I mean, especially when you're doing the shopper kind of a thing. I think I personally am not comfortable doing that. I'm not saying not to do it. It's just not something that I'm comfortable with, because I think it does have an element of deception there. Whereas, the other things we've talked about really are analyzing information that's already publicly available.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to share a few examples. So I was thinking about the example you just said, Ken, where you feel a little, you might feel a little dirty if you pose as a shopper. I think there's circumstances where that can be really effective, and it's not,
Oh, sure.
it's not questionable at all. Like if you're an iPad screen repair business or a smartphone screen repair business, and you're really good at what you do, but there's 3 other competitors in your town, I would suggest you take a broken, and if they're applying a lot of competitive pressure, right? And you keep hearing from your customers like, oh, like I had a better experience at the last place I went to, or something like that, right? There's warning flags. Then take a broken phone, go pay for it to be done at the other place, and see what the experience is. Because experiential type behaviors and systems and processes can provide dramatic improvements to the quality of your customers and clients' lives. And the only way you can really glean information is to go through that process and document it while you're doing that, right? To really understand, what are they doing that seems to be better than mine? Why am I getting this feedback from my customers?
Yeah. At least you're giving them money.
Yeah. Well, exactly. They're getting paid for the service.
Right. That makes me feel better. But if you're
Yeah.
doing it purely on a deceptive mode, just so you can
Yeah.
learn information, that's kind of where I personally draw the line. I know that I'm probably, unfortunately, I might be in the minority there. I don't know, but it's just that's a little much for me. But the example you used, I have no problem with, because you're paying for a service.
Right. Yeah, I'm glad Paul also brought up the idea of trade shows, because they're booming again. In fact, they're back with a vengeance. But from my background in corporate marketing back in the day, I used to do a lot of trade shows for our businesses, our national businesses. And one of the things I always did when I was there, like there were some people that would just go, they would represent our business and then they'd check out, right? But what I loved doing was I loved walking the floor and actually seeing what our competitors were doing. Because first of all, it was my responsibility to make sure we had the best trade show presence possible and we attracted people. So you would always find like gimmicks that other people were doing that you'd be like, that's an interesting way to attract people to your booth, or they're giving out certain tchotchkes, right? Nice promotional items, or, you can grab their sales materials. One of my best examples of, I was going to say down and dirty, but it's not down and dirty. In fact, it's totally fine. Although the guy felt a little bit, he wasn't sure whether he did the right thing. But in one of the healthcare businesses I was in, as a marketing manager, we were always looking for competitive intelligence related to our competitors' pricing, their offerings, their loyalty programs. Because we are all going after this very contained group of professionals. And so we always asked our sales team, when they were in a prospect or a client's business, to like look around, like ask if they could take something, like if they saw a brochure, hey, can I get a copy of that? But I remember one guy came back and he had this sheepish look on his face and he's like, oh, I don't know if I should have done this, but it's like gold. He was so proud of himself and yet sheepish. Was he actually saw a competitor's price sheet in the client's garbage. And so he took it out of the garbage. But I thought that, they were getting rid of it. So I didn't feel too bad about that. But anyways, I thought that was kind of a funny example where,
Yeah.
it really was like spy games, right? Where they were trying to figure out what's happening in the competitive environment.
Yeah.
Well, if it was in the garbage, it was publicly available.
That's true. It was still in their office. So, gray area.
Oh, it was well, you didn't say it was in
they weren't dumpster diving.
Yeah.
Ken, how frequently should small businesses gather and analyze competitor intelligence?
Well, I think it depends on the channel or channels that are really the drivers for your business. I mean, if you're a lifestyle business, then social media can be a really important channel for you. That could be, and the speed of what happens on social media it can be and usually is a lot faster than something like organic search rankings. So, I think at a minimum, you need to be paying attention to this for most small businesses at least quarterly, ideally monthly. And then if you've got channels where things can move a lot faster, like social media, and that's an important element for your business or for your competitors, then you might want to monitor that even, several times a week, just to see, hey, did they just put out a new promotion? Did they just launch a new ad where they're offering this, that, because that can become a real immediate threat to what you have going on. I suppose that could also be the case with Google Ads, but generally Google Ads, you're not going to make those rapid changes because, you shouldn't, because really you need to let campaigns optimize themselves and run over a period of time and let the people who are running those campaigns do the optimization work. But so it a little bit, it depends on, the nature of your business. It depends on the channels that are the most important for you.
Yeah.
So it's hard to give a definitive, answer, but once a year is probably not enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, some examples that pop into my mind is, there's competitive things that we monitor for our clients that, first of all, are really hard for them to monitor, but because, as you guys were talking about, we have the tools, right? And so because it's important to our clients, we're reporting on this on a monthly basis and tracking it on a monthly basis. Social media, right? We have tools that can basically tell us, like, hey, this is the audience size in all of the social channels. This is the amount of activity both our client and their core competitors have taken in that past month. And here's the engagement levels, right? And here's the top social posts so that we can learn from them. Because sometimes that's from our perspective, it's an educating opportunity where I can go back to a client and say, hey, like, look at the top social posts in the past month across our competitive set. You're not there, right? You're doing the good strategic posting, but the good strategic posting usually doesn't get the big boom of big engagement. It gets steady engagement. But the boom of high engagement is usually when one of the competitors posts a picture of their family, or they're on vacation, or they're doing professional development, or they're with a client in their office, or they're celebrating somebody's birthday, like one of their staff members, and that gets a boom, right? And so it's an opportunity to say, hey, like, you guys should be doing this too, because it's going to help you, right? But that's just a little example of how, if you have the right tools or the right team partnering with you, you can keep on top of that on a pretty regular basis.
At the same time, I think it's also important to figure out how important is it for you to do that and win in that channel as opposed to another channel. So don't be distracted, because social media, the metrics with social media way too many times are a distraction and having you focus on the wrong things, because they're really false metrics in many ways. Some of them are really valid. I'm not saying that to throw them all out. Just don't run down that rabbit hole. But at the expense of being able to do something that could be a lot more strategically important for your business.
100%. Yeah. And you're preaching to the choir here too. Cause we usually, like social media is important. You have to be there, right? If you're not there, you're noticed. It's like being at a trade show for a lot of big businesses. If you're not there, yes, you can save money, but it's noticed and it reflects on your brand.
Right.
The another example that I think you'll like better is we also do a competitive snapshot of SEO visibility, right? Where we're saying, okay, here's where you're at, and it charts it the last month or the last year, and here's where your key competitors are at. And that kind of stuff is really hard for a small business without the expertise and the tools to be able to monitor. And a gut feeling like you were talking about earlier, yes, it got you to where you are today. You may have had some stumbling opportunities because our gut is not always right. It might be indigestion. And so, you need to make informed decisions. So, yeah. Awesome. Paul, competitive intelligence can be used to improve different aspects of your business. But let's zone in on marketing specifically. How can small businesses use competitive intelligence to enhance their marketing and advertising strategies?
Yeah, we've kind of touched on some of this a little bit, but it can help you develop more effective campaigns and creative assets, because Ken may not feel completely comfortable doing this, but like I said, if they're running a promotion, sign up for it, because that can tell you if they're. See, Ken left us. I pissed him off.
I know. You shouldn't have said that about him. We lost Ken. No.
But if they're running an automation behind that promo, you sign up for promotion, you get it. They may have a really good copywriter on staff, or they may have a really good copywriter, and their verbiage might be really good.
Yeah.
And you can learn something from that. If you do a Google search and your competitor shows up, click it, and I don't mean an ad, I mean an organic result. Click on that. Is it taking you to their homepage, or is it taking you to a blog post? Because maybe they're ranking for something because they have a piece of content out there that you don't have, or maybe it's, it's the type of content it is, because Google does look at different types of content. Maybe they're ranking number one because it's a how-to bullet point type of content, and you just have a blog post that covers kind of the same thing, but that's not the type of content Google's looking for. So it can help you with your SEO. Let's look what they're doing on social media. Maybe they're posting, like you said, they're posting things other than just about the business that's getting more engagement. We talked about the metrics. A like is different than actual engagement. Okay, those are two different things. But I guess I talked about the content and the organic search. Look at that. Look at what's showing up, what's outranking you, what kind of content's outranking you, and do they have a rewards program? What kind of incentives are they offering? There's saw a commercial the other day for a company that, I think it was a window company, and if you buy, for every 2 windows you buy, you get 1 free or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was. I was just kind of really wasn't paying attention, but that's going to get people's attention, and it's going to cost us some money to offer that. But if people are going to your competitor because they're offering something like that and not you, it's something you can't really ignore it. You may offer something different, but you have to be aware that they're doing that, and they're probably taking business away from you because they're doing something like that.
Yeah. I was recently presenting to a prospective client, and they came to me because they had, talking about gut feelings, they just knew something wasn't working with the current marketing agency that they were partnered with. SEO wasn't really working. They weren't really happy with their ads. Their website was mediocre. And they just knew something wasn't working, even though they were continuously investing with this organization. And where competitive intelligence fit with this discussion is, after initial discovery call, we do a strategy session. That's how our normal process works. And in that strategy session, prior to that, I gather as much competitive intelligence as I can gather quickly, because I don't want to spend a ton of time necessarily at this stage of the relationship, but I want to equip them to say, no, you're right. Like, something is wrong here. There is a big opportunity. You're losing ground to your competitors month over month. And here's a chart that shows that. We're not making this stuff up. Your feelings aren't making this stuff up. And that's where competitive intelligence can be super powerful, just to, again, they're trying to make an informed business decision about the partnership they have with either us or another marketing agency. And without that information, they're really kind of shooting in the dark, or simply deciding on perceptions of what the business can do, rather than, hey, we put a lot of rigor in what we do on a monthly basis for our clients. And part of how we do that is through competitive intelligence. Ken, how can a small business use competitive intelligence to identify new opportunities for growth and expansion?
Well, so Paul mentioned something about, like, buy 2 windows, get 1 free.
Yeah.
So that's clearly trying to appeal to somebody who's a price shopper.
Yeah.
So if you see that a competitor is doing that, and that really doesn't fit with you, then what do you need to do to prove that you are the value leader, for that solution? And realize that, yeah, you're gonna lose out on customer opportunities, but they were never gonna hire you anyway, because
Yeah.
they're price shopping, and they're looking for the lowest price. So I think you can certainly identify opportunities. Unfortunately, way too many businesses, they don't know how to price their products in the first place.
Yeah.
And, they really aren't very good at differentiation. They may have really
Yeah.
good reputations, word of mouth. They may really do really well because they have clients who become champions for them. But if they're found online, there's nothing that describes the value proposition for them, because they haven't put that work in. And
Yeah.
so, so look around. If your competitors haven't made that investment, you make it. You're going to be able to charge more. You're going to get a better customer or client or patient for yourself. And so I think that's one of the biggest areas that most people just completely miss. I think you can look around and see, like, if you're going to make an investment in a strategic partnership, look around and see, are your competitors, has anybody else already signed up to be that strategic partner in that market? If not, then maybe that's telling you maybe there's something really that you could gain by you getting that strategic partnership first, because a lot of these are territorial specific, and you can only have one partner, or a set of small set of partners at a particular status in a particular marketplace. So so pay attention to what people are doing there. I think that's a really important thing. Looking at, just something as simple as online reviews. If you look around and your competitors just have kind of so-so online reviews, or they don't have very many online reviews, and that's something that if you could just go and go back and talk with your clients and put a process moving forward, online reviews is going to give you an opportunity to probably win in one of the faster ways possible that you could. So yeah, there's just finding out the weaknesses of your competitors and what they're doing, especially from an online marketing perspective, can be a really good indication of where you need to put the pedal to the metal and go after owning that piece of the digital space.
Yeah. I really appreciate you talking about core differentiation as well, because first of all, you can't create a core difference or a unique selling proposition unless you actually do competitive intelligence, right? How are you going to stand out if you don't know how the competitors are standing out or not
Yeah.
standing out right now?
Yeah.
I did that recently where I was basically doing a survey of top competitors in a particular field for a particular client, where we're looking at, their websites and trying to determine from their websites and also from our client's website what their core message is, their new client, right? So why we're doing that is because if you don't create a core difference, you become a commodity, right? How is somebody going to choose you over somebody else unless it's price? And you never want it to be price, right? Or, airy fairy feelings or indigestion or something. So indigestion's come up twice today. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, in general, I think you're going to get a better client experience, and they're going to feel better about working with you when they feel like you're providing that extra value. Yeah, you're always going to find people who need to buy based on price. There's always going to be price pressure for sure. When you can get out of that realm and elevate your business out of that, you're operating at a different level.
Yeah. When I'm talking to dental clients, right, or dental prospective clients, it always comes up like, who are your ideal clients? And they kind of sheepishly usually say, people with teeth. Oh, and people without teeth. Well,
Right.
so every person on the planet could potentially be your client, and
Right.
every business could potentially be my client. But that's not the point. It's who do you resonate with? Who do you love working with? And who do you want to attract more of? Right.
Yeah.
That there's a beautiful synergy there that can be created. Hey, Paul, what are some tools and resources that small businesses can use and leverage for conducting competitive intelligence?
That's a good question, because there are free tools out there, but they give you a very limited data set. So if you really want a more complete picture, you're probably going to have to pay an agency to do it, or else you're going to pay for some of these tools yourself. But Google Alerts is free. You can set up Google Alerts. You can do some competitive analysis from an SEO perspective if you do a Google search for like free website audit and plug your competitor into there. But again, it's going to give you, the free tools are going to give you a limited data set, because they're trying to sell you the paid version. Obviously, that's why they have the free version out there.
Right.
Even like neilpatel.com, right, offers Uber Suggest, or Uber, what's it called? Is it Uber Suggest?
But he changed that recently. You can set up one project for free.
Okay. So that's a great tool that people can get for free.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, they can. Well, if you have 3 or 4 different email addresses, I guess you can set up 3 or 4 different projects. Pro tip.
Sorry, Neil.
But it's also very inexpensive if they want to upgrade to like the lowest tier of paid, because I know I'm actually in one of the tiered paid structures, and I know it's very competitive. But that's just, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say that about SEO. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not expensive, but when you start putting all these different tools together, it's probably going to cost you as much as hiring an agency.
Right.
When you think about it. Now you can do surveys and polls, and you can ask your customers. And the thing is, you want to do a survey that is anonymous, because if you ask a customer, hey, where do we suck? They're probably not going to tell you, because it's uncomfortable for them. But if it's an anonymous kind of survey, you're more likely to get an honest answer that, well, your follow-up was horrible. I had to call, or I had to contact you 3 times when your salesperson should have been contacting me. And that would be good information to have. So getting feedback from your customers. I've talked about, if when you said pay it, if you have a broken screen on your phone, to take to a competitor, pay to have it fixed, and see if there's a follow-up after the service. Do they send you a survey or a poll? See what they're doing. That's not free. You're gonna have to pay to have it fixed. You have to break your phone and then take it in there and pay to have it fixed. But but you could get some valuable information. And there's industry reports and publications out there that are free. Facebook groups, because I love Facebook. Everybody knows that. But there are industry reports out there that you can get. I don't really know of any free, maybe somebody else does, any free social media monitoring tools. All of them I know of are paid. But
like Rival IQ still has some free tools. They're limited in scope, but you can run like one competitor to see how many people follow them and stuff like that on a couple of different channels. So there's
if you have 4 email addresses, you can run 4 competitors.
Well, and of course, you like, if you really want to get like grassroots, right? If somebody, it's not really a tool, but you could, you can go to Instagram and you can pull up your competitor's page and find out, or their profile, and find out how many followers they have and how many, what the engagement was on the last few posts. But man, that's tedious work and horrible to try to find trending, right?
Well, and also when people do that, they never factor the price of their time.
Right. Yep. That's a good point, Ken.
What else could you have been doing? How many more sales could you have made if you would have been spending your time doing that instead of, something that's manual, or watching a bunch of YouTube videos so you could learn how to decipher what you can learn from view source about somebody's website.
Yeah.
All of that costs you money, whether or not you're assigning a monetary value to it or not. If you're not being fair to yourself.
Yeah. And one of the real dangers, I think, because if anybody's read any studies on anything, right? Like you understand that there's generalizations and there's averaging and that kind of stuff. And especially because you guys are probably similar, but like I read an awful lot of studies and reports about any kind of digital marketing. So because I want to understand what's going to help us help our clients the most. Yeah. And one of the things I definitely come across, and I'm just in this particular example, I'm talking pay-per-click, right? So Google Ads, when you look at industry average reports, like it's great to be able to say, oh, the average cost per click for a home services business is X. But man, like in the home services industry, there is such a myriad of inexpensive businesses for Google Ads and super expensive businesses for Google Ads that the averages are almost meaningless, right? You really need to do your own competitive intelligence to understand, like in my marketplace, how is my business comparing to my closest competitors? Otherwise, you're misleading yourself a little bit if you're like, the cost per click should be half this because this study says so.
Yeah, industry averages always irritate me because the problem with averages, it's an average, and it takes the high end and the low end, and like you said, home services. Well, if you're a landscaping company, your cost per click is probably going to be a lot less than a water restoration company.
Yeah,
and
better be.
Yeah, and that's the problem with averages. That's same problem with percentages. If you don't understand what a percentage is telling you, you're going to get a very skewed idea of what that data is.
Yeah. Hey, Ken, competitive intelligence sounds like it can be super valuable tool in the strategic planning for a business, but it also sounds like a lot has involved. We've talked a fair bit about that, but how can a marketing agency help a small business research and monitor competitive intelligence and make it easier for them to glean those valuable insights without the burden of doing all the work and using their own time to do all this, as well as learn how to do it?
Yeah, I mean, chances are we have better tools. We work in this stuff all the time. We can set up and automate monitoring to a large extent that maybe wouldn't be easy for an individual business to do. First of all, the price, the tool set alone would be price prohibitive for most small businesses. And we know what to look for, and we also know, based on if we really do understand, the clients that we're working with, we understand these are important metrics, but they're not rock your world kind of important metrics. So we want to kind of keep them visible and pay attention to them, but these are the ones that are really move the needle kind of things. And we know that because we work with a lot of different clients. We have the experience. We do this each and every day. It's, if I were a roofer, which I'm not, and you would never want to hire me to be a roofer. It would take me a very, very, very long time to be competent at the level of most roofers that you're going to hire today, if ever. Well, the same thing is true with us. I mean, this is our job. This is what we're supposed to do. This is our expertise. Any good, credible marketing company that is really looking at an omni-channel, strategy-driven solution for you is going to be able to have the tool set and the analytical savvy to be able to say, these are the important things, these are the distractions, here's what's going to make it, here are the difference makers, here are the things to ignore, and having that tool set and that expertise, I think can be an incredibly valuable competitive asset for a business.
Yeah. When I was in the corporate world, again, I keep pulling some of these examples out today, but I think they're good, is that I remember one of the big distinctions that I learned over time was, especially when I was in a very data rich environment, was that we could spend enormous amounts of time as marketing teams digging up tons and tons of data, but the data didn't matter if we couldn't pull out insights that were used to inform decision making. And I think that's where it's almost equivalent to, when you have an ailment, you might go to your general doctor and they might be able to determine some things. But oftentimes, if it's something they can't figure out, they have to kind of escalate that to a specialist, because the specialist has the expertise, the knowledge, the experience, and the right tools in order to diagnose, in order to come up with, the right prescriptive solution. And that's kind of how I equate what we do. We're not medical doctors, but we're SEO doctors, and we're pay-per-click doctors. We're marketing guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and the other thing too, we talked a little bit about this earlier, where a lot of businesses think, well, I can't afford to make the investment to do this competitive analysis. Well, you upgrade your capability when you hire a marketing agency that's worth a darn, because they have a bigger data set. Chances are that, even if they're niche focused or they're not niche focused, they still have a bigger data set. They still see what's working, what's happening in other markets, in other industries, or within an industry. Even if they're like, let's just say that you're niched and they're working in a particular industry, like dental. I know that you spend a lot of time working in. You're going to know what other dentists are doing across the country. And while they're not competitors per se, you're still learning and bringing valuable information and insights to help people make better decisions in individual markets. And what I love about that is, every one of our clients, we learn and we can apply new and different stuff across the board, because we've got all of these little experiments going on, and marketing is ultimately, it's an experiment. And to the extent that you can take what you learn and leverage it and make it better, you can apply that across several of the other. In some cases you need to kind of leave things alone so that you have a true test going on, but so that you can determine one from the other. But once those tests are done, now you have a wealth of knowledge that you can start to apply or not apply. And say, ooh, it looked like this was going to be the greatest solution since sliced bread. It worked great over here. It doesn't work in these three places over here. So maybe it's not the end all be all that we thought. And as an individual business, it's hard to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It just strikes me that I should say this right now for our listeners, if they've lasted this long in this discussion, is that you talked at one of the earlier questions about the benefits to the business. Like, we're not talking about doing this for the sake of doing it. Like, activity for the sake of activity is just wasted time, money, and energy. What we're talking about is doing this for a purpose in order for you as the business to get a better return on your marketing investment, because that will help you turn a $10 investment into a $100 investment, $2,000 into a $40,000 investment. Like, that's what we're trying to do for you. And that's where this kind of stuff can be really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So Ken and Paul, any parting thoughts, any further wisdom, anything you feel that we've missed that we should be sharing today on this topic?
I don't think so.
No, I don't really think so either. I mean, it can be a lot of fun. You can also get really distracted. So you have to keep a focus.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a rabbit hole, right? Like, I don't know if you guys find this, but like, I have to make sure I kind of have a scope in mind when I'm doing competitive intelligence, or I can keep pulling threads forever and keep finding information.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, just as a parting thought from me, guys, for our listeners, remember that your business doesn't live in a bubble. We talked about that you need to pay attention to the playing field and the competitors in your area to stay ahead of them and to find new opportunities. So I think this is a great place to wrap up. Thank you, Ken and Paul, for sharing your thoughts on this important topic. And thank you to our audience for joining us today. I hope you found this topic valuable. If so, please share the link to the podcast with other businesses who could benefit from this. And until next week, keep calm and market on.